the Bugatti Veyron, boasting an 8-litre quad-turbo W16 engine with roughly 1,000 horsepower, powering 4 wheels to allow 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds. The first production car to hit 250 miles per hour, and at the time of release, the fastest car on the planet. But could this car be an investment opportunity? Hello everybody, my name is Niall. I'm an accounting graduate, and on this channel we talk everything finance, and today I'm going to be running through why I think the Bugatti Veyron could be a potentially great investment for the next 20 years. So why do I think that the Bugatti Veyron could be a great investment for the future? Well, there's only been 252 Veyrons produced throughout the 9-year cycle that Bugatti produced these cars, and if you include special editions, that number goes up to only 450. When they were new, Bugatti Veyrons were worth £925,000, and 16 years later you can find them on Auto Trader from between £800,000 to £1.6 million. And at the higher end there, you're looking at the special edition cars, such as the Grand Sport, Vitesse and the Super Sport. Now, if you're like me and you're born in the 90s, then you probably grew up watching Top Gear if you're a fan of cars. And thus, there's been so much impotence put on the Bugatti Veyron as one of the most legendary cars of all time. Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond and James May go on about the Bugatti Veyron all the time as one of the most legendary cars. The car is featured in 10 Top Gear episodes over the many years that the boys spanned on the show. So that makes it a very desirable car for people my age growing up. It's the type of car that you see on a poster on someone's wall. And obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this was the fastest car in the world at the time, the first one to go over 250 miles per hour. But what car did it beat? It was the McLaren F1. The McLaren F1 is the predecessor of the fastest car in the world. It was produced in 1992 and hit a speed of 240 miles an hour. It had a 6.1 litre naturally aspirated V12 with an output of 618 horsepower. It did 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. But why do I bring this up? Well, the price of the McLaren F1 in 1992 when it was first produced was £520,000. Adjusted for inflation in today's money, that's £1.1 million. And with reference to this Top Gear article, up until 2006, which was 14 years after initial production, the price of the car hadn't really moved. But by the end of 2008, prices had trebled to £1.5 million. By 2014, McLaren F1s were worth £5 million. In 2015, Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean, sold his car, which he'd crashed twice, for £8 million. Then in 2017, chassis number 44 made just under £12 million at auction. The buyer apparently F1 legend Lewis Hamilton. So with similarity to the Bugatti Veyron, it was the fastest car in the world at the time, and it didn't appreciate in value for 14 years after coming out. Bugatti Veyron 16 years now, but I feel like we can only see increases from this point. And on the investment hand, let's have a little comparison between what it would be like to have invested in the McLaren F1 in 1992 versus some popular investment techniques. So if I had invested the amount of the McLaren F1 in the S&P 500 in 1992, waited until now, then I would have £4.6 million. Now that sounds pretty great until you realise that that's £11.4 million less than the McLaren F1. So now to compare the investment of the McLaren F1 with the investment in the housing market. Using data from Nationwide, if I were to have bought the average house in 1992, it would have been worth £52,000. And selling the average house nowadays in 2021 would be roughly £230,000. So if I was to max out the value of the McLaren F1, £520,000, I'd be able to buy 10 houses, which would give me 10 houses to sell now. This would equal £2.3 million in revenue selling these houses today. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any data on rental income throughout this period. I was really looking for some average data throughout the entire time that the McLaren F1's been out, and therefore I would have been able to get a rough figure on the amount of rental income someone could expect to get in that period. But I really can't imagine it being upwards of £14 million that you need to match the McLaren F1. So back to the Veyron, let's have a look at some of the risks to this investment. So the first risk I'm going to point point out is the EU regulations that are going to come into effect regarding petrol-powered cars. So the EU are set to ban the sale of petrol-powered cars as early as 2030. And I'm sure that this is going to send shockwaves through the car community. But the other effect of this is if less people are using petrol-powered cars, surely petrol stations are going to become few and far between. So if petrol stations are less common, then is that going to increase the price of petrol? It also makes it far less easy to own a petrol-powered car. Currently, you just drive to the nearest fuel station and you're absolutely fine. But if they don't exist, then someone's going to have to drive very far to get their fuel or get it delivered to them. And this potentially makes petrol-powered cars less lucrative to own. A second risk I'm going to mention is electric vehicles, and in particular the speed of electric vehicles. The new Tesla Model S Plaid Plus is a family saloon that is going to go from 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds, and that's a feat that not even the Veyron can compete with. If it is easy for future electric cars to produce the amount of speed that the Veyron has, then is it going to become less lucrative of an option? The third risk I'm going to mention is the release of the Chiron and any other new Bugattis that come out. If you are a person that has millions and millions of pounds, are you going to settle for an old Bugatti Veyron, or are you just going to go right ahead and buy the new Bugatti Divo? The market of millionaires that are looking to spend over £1 million on a car that is 15 years old is potentially slim. However, I do believe that when the car hits modern classic status, this will start to nullify and people will want to go ahead and buy the Veyron. And finally, the last risk is that absolutely no one watching this video has £1 million to go and buy a Bugatti Veyron. And if you have got £1 million and you are looking at buying a Bugatti Veyron as an investment, I honestly think that the positives do outweigh the negatives here. And as you can see from the past, the McLaren F1 has soared in value. And I do think that the Bugatti can do the same. Hopefully one day I will be able to put my money where my mouth is and have enough to buy a Bugatti Veyron, make it part of my portfolio, and see what it's worth in 25 to 30 years. So that wraps up everything in this video. I really hope that you enjoyed watching it, and if you did, make sure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel for more financial content. I upload every Wednesday and Saturday at 4 PM. Thanks so much for watching.